Okay, just a reminder that we're focused on protecting data and use, and everyone's welcome, and it's a collaborative community. Our antitrust policy notice for anybody who might be new on the call, and you can go to the link here for more details. Here's the agenda I was thinking of. I didn't get any additional feedback on the agenda, so kind of our normal first three items. Quick analyst update, basically the same confidential computing write-up has appeared in new publications, so I'll just give you an update on which ones those are. That'll take a very short period of time. A press update, there's a new article that's likely to come out on confidential computing, so I was going to give everyone a heads up if they weren't contacted, through their member companies for comment. Then I set aside some time. Is Sarah on?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I've allocated as much time as you need to do any of the blockchain use case discussions for the updated white paper. So are you, what point are you at with that? Are you ready to kind of do that?
That sounds great. I think we got some really good feedback. So if we could just review and have an open discussion on the call, I think that would be a great way to make some progress on this.
Allocate a bulk of the time to that. And then we had some requests for confidential computing related speakers this week, and that kind of gave me the idea of maybe creating a little more formal process so we have speakers available for people, so I wanted to open up some discussion about maybe creating a speakers bureau or a list of available speakers for people. So that's what I had. Was there anything else? I know there were some discussions 2 weeks ago about more numbers on maybe white paper downloads or LF or website related issues. Stefano, is there anything we need to add to the agenda related to some of the action items that came out of 2 weeks ago?
No, I'll cover them in the action item review.
Okay.
And then we might just want to mention Lisa from Xilinx has joined the call. So we might just want to welcome Xilinx as their new general member.
Welcome, Lisa. Do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Hey everyone, Lisa Briggs from Xilinx, and we just joined, so exciting to learn more about the consortium. And I am directing the data center communications for our business unit.
A little what's the angle that Xilinx is interested in related to confidential computing? What's your tie-in?
Actually, I'm just learning from you guys right now. We just signed up, and my partner Scott Schweitzer got on. He probably has the best perspective on. Look like he's signed on. Yeah, I will have to get some more information. We just really signed up and I'm learning about it.
Be in learning mode, and
yep.
Please, we welcome, no matter what the kind of member status or whether you're new or not, helping and signing up for things. So, please feel free to volunteer even if you're new to the group.
Great, thanks.
Okay, any other additions or suggestions for the agenda before we get started? Okay, let me get back to the presentation here. Okay, let's do a roll call. Let's see. I see Philippe, Ava, Ben from Red Hat, Jesse from Intel, Sarah. Let's see. I think that means we have quorum. Can you double check me on that, Stefano?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Howard is on too, right?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yes, we have
Is there
Lisa.
anybody else- is there anyone else besides Lisa who's new that we need to introduce to the group?
No, I think everybody else here has
Okay.
been before.
Okay, great. And Stefano, do you note all the the general members who are here?
Yeah, sure did.
Okay, great. Let's move on. Okay. I reviewed the minutes from the last meeting 2 weeks ago. Are there and I didn't see anything that needed to change. Were there any abstentions or people who had issues with the minutes from last week or 2 weeks ago? Sorry, July 15th. No? Okay, let's resolve to pass the minutes then. And Lisa, for you, the links are here, and you can always go look at past minutes if you want to catch up on what's been going on. And then there are also recordings available. So you just need, there's a wiki page. So if you don't have access to that, you should get access to that, and then you can get into this, both of these. Many of the outreach folders, including the ones that have the recordings and minutes.
And Lisa, just so you know, the recordings are kept member only, so they're not open to the public.
Great, good to know.
Okay, action items. I had to decrease the font because our action item list is growing to fit it onto one page. So I think we had a bunch of things that are still in process. Stefano, number 1, user engagement, is that still in process?
Yeah, you can keep that on there. Stephen and I are working on that.
Okay, I'm gonna go into not, so I can just update these if necessary. Okay, Ben, the web summary template one that's been on there for a while, is that still the same status?
Yes, little bit of progress, but it's still working through it. I'm not don't have anything major to report yet.
Okay. Number 3, I still haven't connected with the UC Berkeley / Keystone group on the open source enclave workshop. They did have a session in the TAC about their project, so I'll reach back out to them and try to get that going again. Stefano, this one's done. We can take this off. That was done last week. Data dump from the conference. We did some of this. Do we have more of that to do in terms of?
We do have one step left, so I have a full data dump of everyone who visited the booth. I do know how to get that into Salesforce. I don't have permissions to do that yet. So I'm working with our IT staff to get me the correct permissions so I can just do that going forward. That way it doesn't have to be a ticket for IT every time it needs to happen. I think that'll just be handy going forward. So rather than just handing it off to them, I'm getting the correct permissions to do it myself. We probably do need to, if we don't have an action item, to chat about the 8.5 by 11 and A4. Those are in progress. They're working on that. Seth, you saw a V1, which we're going to correct and make a little cleaner. I guess maybe less clean. There was just too much white space.
It was, yeah, it's like they took the version that was like in a wide format and just put it on an 8.5 by 11 format instead of relaying it out to fit the 8.5 by 11 / A4 format.
Yeah, sorry, I ran that by you just because, I mean, it looked weird to me, but I don't do a lot of white papers. So I thought, I don't know, maybe that's what they look like. But I'm glad to know that my instinct of saying that was too much white space was correct.
White space is good, but like, you know,
yeah, too much looks weird.
Having it in tiny font and taking up like a quarter of the page is probably not.
Right, it's a little too much room for notes.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's still in progress, and I'll keep working with creative folks on that one. Also, just so folks know, the white paper graphics, we should glance at that because they did. I uploaded, Seth, I think I just sent it to you, the icons to replace the graphic on the white paper.
We have one thing on the white paper where we'll be talking about blockchain. Maybe at the tail end of that, you can share your.
Perfect. Yeah, that Sounds good.
icon situation in case
It's we just need a quick they give us a bunch of options for all 3 graphics. We all just need to quickly decide which one we like the best so that they can
context. This was we had intended for a graphic to be redone that we had kind of put a placeholder in there of an example that was from Microsoft, and that never got redone, so it got published like with the Microsoft graphic in there. So we want a CCC branded vendor neutral graphic. So that's the context of that.
exactly.
Okay.
So,
not that it says Microsoft anything in the graphic, but
it's just very obviously clip art.
Yeah.
So then in terms of form fills on the white paper, I think we're good with that. We've got a website link that people can go. Are we just, that was just.
We should also publish, maybe you can send it out to the group. We talked last week about the providing a direct link and changing that direct link so it doesn't have like Open Source Summit North America built into the link. So
okay.
I think you sent that to me for use with a reporter, but I think
sure. Let me publish that to the list.
Yeah, send it to the whole outreach list, and
I'll give myself that action item.
Yeah. And again, just as a reminder, and for new people, we had a discussion around we want to encourage and allow people to reference the white paper in product documentation or member blogs, and when doing that, it's acceptable to link directly to the paper instead of the paywall, as many people have a policy about that. So that's the link that Stefano will be sending out, is the direct one that would just go directly to the PDF of the white paper. Okay.
Next up,
the collect current PR contacts. I haven't done that yet. That's Stefano, that can be on me, because there were a lot of emails flying back and forth in the last PR activity that had PR contacts in it. So I think my inbox is probably the best source of the current contacts, and then I can put those in a sheet, and then we can open it up to the rest, all the members of the outreach committee to modify that with whoever should be the correct PR contact. But
sure.
I haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay. So the link is indeed parsable for number 8. And as it turns out, we have Google Analytics, and it is turned on and has been since the site launched. So I will spend some time this week basically parsing all that information, figuring out the best way to share it with everyone. If it's possible to just get you all logins so that you can all just log in and play around yourselves, I'll do that. If that turns out to be a challenge, I'll just figure out a best way to get the information out of there regularly and post it somewhere where you can all view it.
I have a question on this, Stefano. When, parsed by search engines is one thing, but search engine optimization is maybe a higher level. Does the LF Creative have people who do search engine optimization for pages?
So there is, now I can't remember the name of it. I've only stared at it 100 times, but there is a search engine optimization feature in WordPress that they've, some plugin that they use. And I can certainly take that as an action item to understand how that works and get that rolling. It's kind of a self-serve thing from Creative. They give it to you and say, here you go. Feel free to use that.
Again, like score your search engine optimization or something.
Right.
They have one of those, and they're doing the work to tune it and put the right keywords in the metadata and all of that, then that's fine. But
right. If anyone in the group happens to know a lot about SEO and wants to, it's called Yoast, Y-O-A-S-T. If anyone happens to know a lot about search engine optimization and wants to hang out with me on a call, I'm happy to take suggestions. But that being said, if no one wants to volunteer for that position, I'm happy to take it as an action item. And it sounds like Ben is willing to chat with me.
Enough to be dangerous, but not enough to probably help someone who's more familiar with it. So I will defer to you.
Sounds good. Let's see. Next, we're on 9. Visibility. Okay, so the white paper has been posted to the main page. You will notice that it has a very simple icon next to its call to action. I'm creating Jira tickets with Craig's team to essentially revamp our front page. I want to change the look and feel to be a little less generic and a little more basically go to Hyperledger's front page and look at that. It's all branded much better. Instead of having backgrounds that are just blue, we should have backgrounds that are, you know, a picture of something that are sort of more or less opaque. So I'll work on making this look a little bit more professional, but it is available and on the front page, so the visibility is there. So
okay. Well, that's good. It's not hidden anymore. That's a step forward.
Yeah, exactly. So we're moving in the right direction, but I think actually, and I brought up Hyperledger, I would look at Hyperledger's front page and, you know, if you have any thoughts or changes you would make, aside from that, that's the basic thing I'm going for, is to make it a little bit more professional looking. They have pictures from conferences they can use because they've been around a while. So there's lots of great like conference photos they use in their front page. We'll figure something out that's more generic for now. And then as we grow as an organization and have more pictures from conferences, we'll start putting those up on there.
The diagram once it's redone or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll basically use what we have now to make it better.
Okay. So this one's in progress. Mine is done, but you're gonna like follow up on it.
For number 10 is done, since we're all here. Oh, wait, change me to, oh, right, I posted the tag. Yeah, we're good. Discuss the chat. Okay, so that one is, I did not do in the last tech meeting, so I will add a reminder to myself and be sure I bring that up.
Oh, not done.
Apologies for missing that one.
I'll just leave that one. Okay. Is there any action item I missed that anybody remembers? I think I put all the ones from the minutes, so hopefully we got everything. Okay.
I'll just report on an action item that's not on your list because it's on the TAC list, but it is relevant because you were talking about direct links to things. Just FYI, the website has a direct link to the TAC scoping.md document right now. And the TAC has an action item. It was observed that that document is phrased as a proposal for the CCC to adopt. Well, that's now happened, and so the TAC is going to be updating that to be a statement of the current state rather than a proposal of the future. And so it's mostly wording, but just letting you know that the TAC is working on that, which does affect the website.
Okay, there was some discussion around the placement of that on the website. Was there any, I was there, but I forget whether there was a request to change the location or anything like that.
So my recollection is there was not a request to change. If the outreach was to change, that's up to outreach, but there's no request from the TAC there.
I mean, we moved it to its current place recently, yeah. So unless there's an issue with where it is, we'll probably leave it where it is. And just for people's, let's see, I believe what we're talking about is this right here, scope.
Correct.
And, it goes to a GitHub page. Formerly, before the white paper, this page had the most content around the definition and everything, and still has more content than the outreach white paper. So I think it's good to highlight because it was a very useful page for a lot of people, and I referenced it, to external people. So I'm glad that it's getting updated to reflect a statement of fact or whatever, as opposed to a proposed.
Yeah, you can see on your screen right now, section 1 is all about the board needs to answer the above questions. That's all about phrased in future tense. And so we're going to update this to be a statement about what was the result rather than the proposal. So
some of these things like this graphic and this graphic appear in like the analyst deck, but not in the white paper. So that's the analyst deck isn't publicly accessible. So, these are kind of the only locations for some of this data right now.
Right, although for the rest of the outreach, FYI, the TAC white paper is incorporating that other information. So But that's not published. That's not published yet, so you can't reach it from the main page. So Seth is correct as far as what's reachable from the public web easily right now. But we are moving that content to, or at least copying the content to.
Great. Once we have the technical white paper, which is, you know, midway in progress, I'd say, right? There's some content in there, and there's still sections being worked on, I think. Okay. Anything else? Thanks, Dave. That was a good action item to discuss. Any other action items before we move on? Okay. I just wanted to note this because, you know, we did send out an update, and there is if you go into the main files, outreach, and then the analyst one, there's a place where I copied and pasted into a PDF the confidential computing component of the write-up that is in the Gartner hype cycles. But what's happened since then is that confidential computing write-up has been added to 3 additional hype cycles, which is good. I mean, the more hype cycles it's in, the more people are reading about confidential computing. But it's not there's no difference in the content of what they wrote. So there's basically one, you know, let's say about a page long worth of content about confidential computing, and it's the same across all the hype cycles. Any questions on that? There is also another section in many of these that's called hardware-based security that is a separate category that's very related to confidential computing that's, you know, covered somewhat separately, and I guess would include a broader set of hardware-based security things. So, you know, just be aware of that. Okay, any questions on analyst-related topics before I move on? Okay. I just wanted to let people know that we interacted with a reporter from Data Center Knowledge who is writing an article on confidential computing. We provided some answers to her questions that were essentially, you know, related to stuff that's in the white paper. So it's pretty, you know, the answers are essentially copy and pastes from the white paper about what the value of confidential computing is and what use cases it's popular for and those kinds of things. So we had, you know, I gave them Stephen's name to use if they're going to quote any of the stuff from the outreach white paper, and then, you know, look for it. You know, I think they're filing the article today, which, you know, depending on how the editors want to use it, could, you know, come out today or in a few days. So when it's out, I'll send a link to the outreach list if it mentions the CCC or uses anything that we provided in the article. Any questions on this one? Okay. White paper. So Sarah, how would you like, do you want to take over screen sharing, or would you like me to go to the draft and then how do you want to do that?
I'm kind of happy either way. I think we just need to get to the Google Doc and just quickly run through the comments.
Why don't I pull it up, since if it works there.
Perfect.
And let me make it a little bigger for people who are on top screens. Okay, so by the way, this is the graphic we were talking about that we're redoing. Sorry, it's at the end. I can go a little faster here. Okay.
Perfect. Well, hopefully everyone had a chance to read, and for folks that are new to the call, we already released the outreach white paper, but there was a new addition for a blockchain use case, so that's what we're reviewing today. And really, I think what would be helpful to get clarity and feedback on today is whether or not I think a lot of the comments that have been made make a lot of sense and I think are great. I guess the question I want to pose, and I don't know if anyone from iExec is on, because I think they would have a good point of view on this, is making sure that we're hitting the right tone that's aligned with the rest of the outreach white paper, and really providing enough information that gives people who are maybe not familiar with the blockchain use case for confidential computing enough information to really understand its applicability and how kind of the power of the two technologies is really impactful for users of blockchain. So with that being said, I guess the main thing I want to discuss today is actually the example that was used by iExec. Is anyone on the phone from iExec or anyone on the call? Because I don't think Lee's on.
Which example, like what portion of it is, so I can highlight it?
It's the paragraph right below what you have here. So the first two paragraphs are aimed to talk about the high level applicability and make it, I would say the goal was to really make it quite expansive so that it covers the realm of use cases and possibilities with the two technologies. And this use case here is a great one. But I guess my one question, and I'd love feedback on this, is this the right tone that kind of represents one, kind of is aligned with the rest of the white paper, and two, I'm not sure if it's too vendor specific, not on the TEE side, but just in the broader applicability for blockchain. So I'll actually pause there for questions or comments on that question.
Well, I think just the context of the way the other use case sections were written was that it was kind of intended to be like two paragraphs. And, there are some like multi-party computing where we added some kind of very generic common examples. So I think in general feedback examples are good, but they shouldn't be too niche or vendor specific. They should be like the main or like a very common use, because we're trying to convey like a typical use case, not one specific.
Right. No, that makes sense. And the one thing, when you look at the second paragraph, which is above that, I wanted to get some feedback if that touched the example use cases enough, and if maybe we could add more context to that second paragraph around how, the first line is all about how you can leverage TEEs for either scalability, privacy, or security. And really what the example references is the use of TEEs for scalability in a blockchain network. And that's the use case that really dives into. But I'm wondering if maybe we should, provide some higher level context around each point. How does it provide scalability? How can it be used to enhance privacy? And how can it be used to enhance security?
I really liked the second paragraph. The first paragraph sort of gives a context of what is blockchain for folks who might not know. And then the second one sort of intersects blockchains with TEEs and why is that novel and valuable. And after that, it didn't feel quite as congruous, right? It got more specific. I don't think we have a sort of bulleted list anywhere else in the section.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely goes to a greater level of detail than what we have with other usages.
Yeah.
I think the first two paragraphs look really good. I think probably the only thing though is to look through the stuff after that and make sure that scenario, not all the details of the implementation, but the basic scenario is at least captured in the above paragraphs. It seems to be talking a lot about off-chain compute and the ability to use a TEE for that. Maybe we could just have a single sentence or something up in the above paragraph to make sure that is referenced.
Yeah, I like that.
Solution.
Okay, that sounds great. So how do you recommend we proceed? I'm happy to take another stab and add that in, or does someone else want to make sure that we're properly representing that in the first two paragraphs.
If you were the author of the first two paragraphs, you should draft something that's proposed and maybe send it out, you know, to make sure everybody's happy with it, and maybe talk with, you know, the iExec author to make sure it captures the use case within your two paragraphs.
Yeah.
Hey, Sarah, this is Jesse. One of the things I kind of had a question about is at an even higher level, we've often categorized blockchain as an example of multi-party compute, which we also have in this document, right? Now that we're kind of splitting blockchain out with more detail, how do we want to contrast it or with multi-party compute, or you know, I'm just trying to think of the right way to position, because up above we talk about multi-party compute, and I'm pretty sure we even include blockchain as an example of that, and then we kind of go into more detail with blockchain specifically.
Yeah.
If I could jump in there, this is Ava. I'm looking at the multi-party compute section, and I don't think that's
Okay, maybe well, no, it is.
It
See, it
evolved.
says right up at the top, you know, it just says new
Such as
compute paradigms.
blockchain.
Yeah, it's just given as an example. But maybe do we want to, I'm not saying we have to do like a big paragraph that explains exactly how they're different, but do we want to make any sort of reference to kind of why we're drilling into that specifically, and if there's any sort of difference there?
So what I've understood, and this is probably a good test of the section on blockchain that's being proposed, is its description isn't, the intent isn't to say blockchain is a new type of technology that this enables, but rather confidential computing, TEE, enables blockchains to be done differently, to be implemented differently, and that change is fundamentally important to making blockchain more widely adoptable, usable, scalable. That's the key, which is not covered in multi-party compute section at all.
Okay, yeah,
and
that's a good distinction. Do we want to be explicit about that?
I think it is that second paragraph, and this could be expanded upon a bit more perhaps, but I think that second paragraph in blockchain is explaining what novel utility TEs provide to blockchains.
Yes, I guess what I was thinking is maybe we want to say something like, in addition to opening up new types of multi-party, blockchain networks, TEEs also add additional security and protection to traditional blockchains. So something to that effect, that kind of makes a reference to the fact that we've already mentioned blockchain before, but we're adding more here.
I like that. Yeah, it's worth contrasting.
And Jesse, I actually love that opening. I really like that opening line on the multi-party compute. I think because it talks about how blockchain is a new way for multiple parties to either share data with one another,
right?
Whatever the definition is. And this definitely dives into the implementation details. But I wouldn't say blockchain is a use case for multi-party compute. It's more that they're both about opening up opportunities for multiple parties to, get in sync on something, but in very different ways, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we can add a one line, maybe calling out explicitly, the implementation. This is much more focused on how TEEs enable blockchain implementations to be either more scalable, add additional privacy features, etc. Okay, that makes sense. The other question I have, and Ben, I think you're on, it says that you were told comments. Is there anything here that is currently not documented in the comments or feedback on this doc that we should be aware of?
Ben, you're muted.
I'm sorry. What was that question again?
If you look at the screen right now, it says I don't know who quite wrote this, but they said they shared comments with you, but can't seem to comment. So I just want to make sure, you know, all of your feedback and whoever else wrote this is included and represented in the doc.
Okay, I think I might know who that was. I thought he had put it in. Okay, let me review that and get that to you.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah,
Great.
I had I think it was our Gordon Half, which is our he sits on our the blockchain committee for Red Hat. I will check and get his comments.
Okay, so the 3 next steps are add an example of the use case down below into the second paragraph, add more detail on how this is specific to the blockchain implementation and how TEEs enhance it, and tie it up to the statement above. And then Ben will wait for you on feedback from your team in case it wasn't documented here.
And Stephanie had a comment in the chat that maybe it's worth moving this section up next to, but not merged with, the multi-party section, just to keep similar ideas adjacent.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great. Any other questions or feedback on this?
And Sarah, when we have like a semi-final version, is it possible to just send a note to the link to the group so we can do sort of a last round of reviews? I would like to just send it through the marketing folks as well.
Yeah, no, happy to do that. Yeah, and Ben, if you could just drop me a note when you feel that the feedback's in there, so that I can just make sure we're all on, everything's done, and I can send it out to outreach.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay, I think that's all. If no one has any more comments, thank you. I think we'll move quickly.
As a reminder, and because Dave's on the phone too, you know, once we have consensus on it in outreach, we want to send it for review to the TAC. Although I've seen Mike's already added comments, but Dave, I don't know if the TAC hasn't been requested yet to review the blockchain section, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I think it is good for us to have a kind of final draft, you know, approved by the outreach, and then send it to you. So we'll ask you to put that on the agenda once we get a approved final version from outreach.
Sure, sounds good. Do you have any guess as to what the time frame is? In other words, is it?
I don't know. I think we're pretty close. Maybe when's your next TAC meeting?
The next TAC meeting would be next week, meaning a week from tomorrow, and the one after that would be probably 3 weeks from tomorrow.
So I don't know. Depending on how people get back to Sarah, next week might be possible. So I mean, we won't have an outreach meeting before next week because we're doing every 2 weeks. So I don't know. It just depends on.
Yeah, sounds like 3 weeks then is probably more likely.
Probably, I don't know, 50-50.
Okay.
If we can get everyone to come back by Friday and then have outreach review it Monday through Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll try and get it to you sooner.
Okay,
But
that sounds great. Just FYI, if you want it on the agenda for next week, then I'm going to be on vacation next week, and so Jethro is chairing. So Seth, you can just ask Jethro to put it on the agenda if you want it on next week.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And yeah, hopefully we can get all the feedback from the different participants by Friday, and then we can get a general review done early next week.
Sounds great.
Okay, so I think we already talked about placement on the website, so that should be this one. We're actually going to update. This is the old link. It will still work because we've given it to some people, but we have a new one that basically says something like white papers, outreach, confidential computing white paper, something like that in a direct link. So that's what what Stefano will send out to the list in case anybody wants to reference it from their web pages or in social media or anything.
I joined a little late, Seth, so apologies if you covered it. What is, if we've already linked to the prior link we have on our sort of marketing page, what is the difference between the new landing page and the old one?
I think the plan is we keep both links active, but so it should still work, but we didn't want this OSS NA 2020 to be in the file name.
So it's just the file name. There's no substantive difference.
Yeah, I think it might be in a different folder too.
Okay.
But we'll if we update when we update the white papers, we can update it to both links.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll just update it then. Thank you.
I know it becomes hard to change links on things. If there's product documentation or something. So we definitely want to not break any of the links, or if anything was indexed by a search engine or anything like that. So. We'll keep this link around, but we'll encourage people to use the new link in new backlinks to it. Does that make sense? Okay, let's move on. Sorry, my Alexa is talking to me. So let me introduce this concept of, so what sparked this idea was we got a request to provide speakers from the CCC to, a random external webinar person who we had never communicated with before. And when that happens, you kind of have to check with people, see who's willing to speak. I emailed some of the TAC people who have done some of our analyst work to see if they wanted to participate. And we got that request filled yesterday, but then there's a whole okay, we have to provide the bio and the picture. And I think it's generally good for us to get as many members speaking about confidential computing in as many forums as possible. So I thought it might be useful to, do something like the one on the right is, a formal speakers bureau where you pay money to have speakers go places. But the idea would be we just have a web page with people who, are willing to speak and familiar with the confidential computing, white papers, analyst presentation, FAQs, and, preferably people who have been media trained, or I can do some media training if they haven't been, and kind of make that a more accessible publicly, which should generate more requests for speaking and get us more exposure. So that's kind of the idea. I haven't done anything other than I think Stephen and I exchanged a few emails on the topic, but I wanted to open that up and see if anybody had any thoughts or objections.
So Seth, this kind of really fits into the website work that we're having Craig at the Creative Group, LF Creative Group do, right? So, it fits a little broadly. So one of the big asks for him is for folks who want to produce content on the website, and this is very extendable to the speaker side, right? Is to provide, first name, last name, a little bio, a picture, as much content as we can. Actually, a full bio would be amazing, because he can create these profiles behind the scenes. He can create a dummy profile and then give you the rights to populate it later. It's a little easier if he does it now at the front end. But what this will do is this kind of creates a little profile in their system. And then when that person writes a blog or does anything that we publish to the website, it provides this nice information about them, and we can very easily leverage all that information and put it in a very simple website, or web page rather, that details out exactly what you're talking about.
You're thinking about merging this with the same data we would need to input for someone who contributed a blog or a piece of content. Okay, that's a good idea.
Most likely they're going to be the same people. I mean, I'll pick on Red Hat, right? I'm from Red Hat. So Mike does lots of presentations. He does lots of blogs. He does lots of stuff. He would be very happy to publish stuff and create stuff for the CCC website. I've no doubt about that. I plan to do that as well for myself. And to me, it's just better to have one profile with the CCC versus like creating multiple, right? And then something getting out of sync, right?
In the context of the speakers, we might need a few more fields or more information than you would need for the blog. So for example, you might want to put something for like published paper, like you're kind of selling the speaker a little bit more as opposed to just providing.
Correct. And I'm happy to take the back end work with working with Stefano and Craig and make this the technical side happen, because I see it as part of the website. Unless somebody has a different idea and agree, and I do actually have a counter proposal if we don't like the simplicity of the website. Red Hat uses a organization called I think it's called Speaker Hub, and I think they're a paid service that I think Red Hat pays them for, but I would be happy to approach them and see if they do something for nonprofits. I think you can do a free version yourself, but I think there's also, I've been talking to their management team about trying to get there's a way to kind of curate the back end where you can have the individual profiles there, and then you can provide back end tags in the system. So for example, you could have tags for like media training, AR training, technical, TAC member, or, technical training versus business training, whatever the tags we wanted to have to differentiate different types of speakers in what they might speak about, right? Like, you'd want to say, Dave can go deep on the technical TEs where I wouldn't, right?
Yeah, there's some like an expertise field or something,
Yeah. Just some simple tag and whatnot, and that allows that would allow somebody like you or Stefano to go into that back end channel and then look and say, okay, I have a request for a speaker to do this and a speaker to do that, and so let me look at my tags and look at what the options are, and then you could publish and say, here's 3 people, go talk to them, right? And it's on a public site. So anyways, I don't know what people think, but I'm providing kind of a counter proposal, and I'm willing to run with either.
Yeah, those are good. Whether we do it in-house in our own CMS or use a third party, we can figure that out later. I think for now, I just wanted to get some directional input on, like, are people supportive of this? Are there any other ideas like the one you provided? So, and does anybody else have? We can work more on the implementation. I just want to get a feel for people's thoughts on the process. Any other? Dave, since you're a speaker, any thoughts on having you're one of my go-to people, so
I love this idea, so yes, please.
Okay. Well, if there's any other comments, speak now. Otherwise, we'll start, we'll put it on the action item list and start putting together a proposal for the implementation.
Can I just ask really quickly, does anybody have any strong feelings or opinions based upon thoughts or experience on either of those 2 approaches?
I've not done one of these for like a nonprofit or open source project or anything before, so I don't have any experience per se. I've been a consumer and like hired people through speakers bureaus to do conferences and things like that. But
okay. So why don't I come up with 2 rough proposals, and then maybe that a little bit more detail will allow people to react and think about it. Can that be my homework?
Sure. And then, if you want to have an offline, between meetings to do a little working session on it, we can do that too.
Sounds good.
Okay. I think that's all I had on the agenda. Let's maybe talk about next meeting, or is there anything else anybody wanted to bring up?
We just want to quickly go over those icons.
Oh yeah.
So,
you want me to? Why don't you share since I don't have them handy?
Sure. There we go. So pretty straightforward. I basically just let them know we had the icons there for data at rest, data in transit, data in use. I said, hey, we just need something that's a little more branded for CCC. And this is what they came out with. So we've got a few choices for each. Do we just want to go through them one at a time and see if folks have a favorite? Awesome.
So are we we're trying to pick one of each?
Ideally, yes, because the white paper just has one icon for each of these things next to some text. So why don't we just number these left to right, top to bottom, 1 through 6. I can count. Does anyone have a preference here?
So I think the 3 rings is a pretty intuitive picture for storage. The stacked rings.
Right.
Left column middle, where your mouse is right now, or right column bottom, because that also suggests the storage might be in a cloud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we probably should get consistent across all of them that we're either going to use a lock or a key and not mix our metaphors.
Agreed. And I don't really like the key icon. That typically indicates unlocking something.
I agree.
I agree on the lock versus the key.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so it sounds like we like this middle row left.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, we don't have to just pick from these, I assume. We can send them back to the drawing board a little bit with direction, right?
Sure, indeed, if we wanted to add the lock to this, for example.
Yeah, that would be my preference.
I would blend 3 and 6
Mhm.
with the lock, and I don't know if we really want to have the 2 colors of blue for the cylinders.
Oh, there's multiple colors there?
There's a darker blue and a lighter blue. Yeah, that just to me seems odd. I'm not sure what that's communicating.
I cannot see the difference.
You're talking about icon 3 has 2 colors.
Yeah, icon 3 has one layer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see the value in
So
that.
it's kind of the
2/3 is locked and 1/3 unlocked or something. I don't know.
So it's almost like the disk cylinder from 4 plus the cloud swoop plus the lock from 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's really a combination of 3, 4, and 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will do, let me just jot this down. We'll do the cylinder from 4 combined with the lock from 3. This is like a buffet. Combined with the cloud from 6. Okay, next set. Let's see if I can get these all on the screen for you.
Yeah, this set I have a tiny bit more of a problem with. I don't think they've presented us with a good option. I see basically what looks to be exchange between storages. I see sort of something circling a Wi-Fi network. When I think of in-flight, I'm thinking of between clouds.
Okay.
Or between machines. So for example, in the bottom left one where you have a single machine there, if there was 2 of those and there was a lock on arrows that go in between the 2, that would be more accurate.
Yeah. So the lock should be related to the arrow, and there should be some representation of either 2 clouds or maybe 2 machines over 2 clouds with arrows in between and the lock on the arrows.
Yep.
See, I like this feedback. This is like super specific.
Awesome.
Well,
All right,
there's nothing like starting with some options to focus your mind.
It really does help. So I've got basically 2 machines / clouds, however they want to represent that, with arrows between them and locks on the arrows.
Yes.
Yeah, or at least a lock.
And I think the arrows could go both.
That's right. They should be bidirectional.
Could go both directions.
Right. 1 bidirectional arrow with 1 lock on it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep.
The third one is like so confusing. There's like a Wi-Fi network and something charging.
Yeah.
It is a bit much.
So I have typically seen the gears as a in use. That seems to me to be a bit of a convention, and certainly it's more intuitive than going back to locks on storage,
Yeah.
which I don't think we want.
Any cylinder in it.
I don't
Yeah,
really
so
understand the cylinders in the here at
Right.
all.
Right. Let's leave the cylinder out.
Yeah, otherwise, I
Gears,
like the one that's in the bottom right if you delete the cylinders, because it shows that the gears are inside of a computing context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Bottom right, remove cylinder. Thank you all very much. That was surprisingly simple and easy.
That was like consensus on everything.
I was really excited to be able to get that done before 8. So I have another meeting. That's all I had. I will get that back to creative, and I will we'll basically put those directly into the white paper, into the place the graphic is today, and I'll show you that finalized version rather than giving you another just the icon view. That way you can see it in context and give feedback that way.
Okay, can we just check with our last 2 minutes items for next meeting, which will be in 2 weeks. So I have the white paper, the speakers bureau, the open enclave event if we have that meeting. Was there any other?
Well, I think I wasn't here in the last session, but so I may have missed something, but I think I still have this kind of outstanding ask for what are we doing about the additional projects, right? We've got the graphene project. There's another one that's escaping me at the moment, but
There's actually 3 that have passed TAC review now, and
Okay.
none of them have completed the legal and board review yet.
right.
So it might be nothing until then, but if you want to get a head start, it's Graphene SGX, it's the project formerly known as Trusted Compute Framework, which is still awaiting a name,
Right.
and then there's Keystone. It's been
Right.
submitted.
Exactly. So 3 great projects. As far as I know, we have no rep from any of those in here. I think that was one of my asks because we need to be able to, in my opinion, our website should have a project page for each of those. We should be looking at how are we getting the word out about those. So I don't know, maybe we need the rep and then we can talk about the content. Or maybe we talk about the content and refer back to the project owners, but somehow we got to get that moving.
Yeah, I mean.
So Jesse, the question that I think the outreach should decide is, until the board actually approves a project, is there any website presence, or is this just getting stuff ready for when that happens?
Well, but my understanding is at least two of them already have the board approval, right?
No.
Graphene's.
Only the 3 that were approved back in October of last year, which is already on the website. None of the other 3 have gone through the rest of the steps yet.
Oh, they just have TAC.
Correct.
TAC
It's just
acceptance.
step 1 of a 3-step process.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to have anything publicly exposed until they're approved, right?
I agree with that. Although we should probably start preparing for that so that when they are approved, we can actually say what they are.
I would say maybe we can add to the agenda what will we do for new projects when they're approved? Like what's the onboarding process? And then we'll know what to do once any of those 3 or all 3 get approved.
Okay, that's a good start.
And we can, Jesse, do you want to propose something for that? Like put one slide together for 2 weeks from now, or?
Yeah, I can try to do that.
Okay. But yeah, I think it's on the table, especially if we have 3 around the same time. Hey, we should do a press release. We should promote it externally. We should have a website presence. There should be a designated outreach contact. Those kinds of things all seem to make sense to me.
Yeah, it's actually unclear whether they'll all complete at the same time, and their reason is at least one of those has more legal paperwork to go through because it has questions about whether it's trademark or who can sign and stuff, and other ones are fairly natural, and so some of them may go through the step 2, the legal process, faster than others. So you either have to hold the press release for the 3rd one, or you'd have to stage it. So.
Well, when the first one gets approved, we can check in and see where we are on the others.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then decide.
All right.
Okay, we're a couple minutes over, so we can adjourn the meeting. Good addition, Jesse. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. So the next meeting is on August 12th, I believe. Is that correct, Stefano?
Yep, that's correct.
Also, everybody check your calendars because there are some orphaned calendar invites that may show up for the 5th. So delete any August 5th calendar invites if you have them. Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.